Good morning, everybody. Good to see you. And, I find it interesting that when the DFL has a governor to work with in their party, that they open their remarks by talking about the last 10 years. But, if the Speaker wants to, I'd be happy to take that sentimental journey with him. The fact is, 2 years ago, the Republican leaders of the legislature took over a government with a $5.2 billion deficit. It's now $627 million. We had cash in the bank to pay back quite a bit of the school shift, more than had actually been incurred over the previous biennium. And so this idea that somehow their problem is significantly worse than it should be because of what's gone on in the past is simply not factually accurate. Believe me, I sat in those leadership meetings. I would love to have had a $627 million problem to confront like they do now. But let's talk about the future. What is their future? Their vision of the future is that they want to add to the $1 billion of additional revenue that is coming into the Treasury anyway. They want to put on about another $2 billion in taxation. And to do what? Not to significantly reform things, but rather just to drive more revenue in, take more money from hardworking taxpayers to grow government and make the programs bigger. If you go through the governor's budget, you'll be hard-pressed to find any significant innovation or changes or reform that will make government more efficient and more effective, which should be the goal for all of us. So this idea that they've got this unsolvable problem because of what's gone over the last 10 years is simply not accurate. They could make some modest adjustments to our spending and get this problem solved. And, oh, by the way, under the current situation, our state economist says that we would actually have a surplus, not in this current upcoming biennium, but the one after that. So this idea that there are all these structural problems that they have to fix is wrong. The fact is, here we stand on April 5th. As of Monday, this legislature will have been in session for 3 months. We haven't seen budget bills from the Democrats, and certainly we're willing to sit down and talk to them about bipartisan solutions. But I think it's kind of interesting that when they have the ability to pass budgets and work with the governor of their party to get things done, they haven't done it yet. I sit on the Senate Tax Committee. You heard the comment of how many bills we have yet to come through the Tax Committee because they haven't dealt with these things yet, and yet they have not produced a budget with their own governor, but they're being critical of us for not producing a budget. All of that being said, believe me, we are more than happy to give our input and try to influence the process, come up with a budget that satisfies all the people that is a bipartisan solution. But the fact is, the idea that we should come up with our budget before the governor and the majority come up with their budget, it doesn't seem to me to make sense. So we're more than happy to work with the governor, with the DFL legislative leaders, but we have to see a budget before we can work on it, and we haven't seen it yet. So let's see some changes, let's see some reform, let's see protection of the taxpayers here in Minnesota and solutions, and then we'll be more than willing to sit down and give them our input.
Good morning. I'll agree with Senator Hann. It seems that the DFL is spending a lot of time blaming Republicans and looking back. And frankly, something I've said from the beginning of this journey, this session, has been that Republicans are ready to roll up our sleeves and look forward. What we did over the last couple of years has worked for Minnesota's economy. I know they're talking about that it's Republicans that are leaving us in a $627 million deficit situation for the next biennium. I'll rewind the clock 2 years. The budget deficit for that same biennium 2 years ago in the February forecast was $4.4 billion. The school shift 2 years ago, $1.7 billion. Today it's $800 million. Minnesota's economy and Minnesota's budget is headed in the right direction. It was interesting also for me to hear Senator Bach say that it takes more than one budget cycle to solve some of these issues. And here we are halfway through, more than halfway through, about 90% through solving Minnesota's budget deficit issues. In the next biennium, we have actually a structural balance of about $800 million in the forecast. And yet we want to shift gears and do something that hasn't proven to work, when we know that not raising taxes has allowed Minnesota's economy to grow, and Minnesota has actually seen more revenue because of it. So I think we all believe, as I heard over the break, and I was out on the road talking to taxpayers, and we heard unanimously from them that our job and what they expect us to do here at the Capitol is to roll up our sleeves and get to work. And Democrats shouldn't be asking the taxpayers of Minnesota for one more penny until we've gone through Minnesota's budget line by line and eliminated wasteful spending and made Minnesota's government basically run more effectively and more efficiently. So we are still committed to rolling up our sleeves and working with Democrats to do that. Obviously, they want us to produce some sort of a budget. I don't know if they want to use our budget as a cheat sheet because they don't know what to do. But we're certainly willing to work with them. We want to do that, and we're eager to actually see their budget. So, and hopefully that'll be introduced, as they said, in the next week or two in the different bills in the committees. And when we see that, our members will be at the table working with them to come up with something that's going to continue to allow Minnesota's economy to grow and continue to allow Minnesota's economy to create jobs. And I think that's a goal that we all share. So I think with that, we'll open it up for questions.
Which lines can you point them to of wasteful spending?
We're actually, I'm not going to get into specific wasteful spending today. We're going to actually do that a little more in depth next week. So I'll give you that little teaser. But we are going to be talking about that. And, once we see their budget, I don't know what they've done this far. And their chairs are going to introduce bills that are going to talk about where the state's priorities should be and where we should spend our money. And we'll be at the table with them talking about if those priorities are right for Minnesota and if there's things that we can eliminate if there is wasteful spending. But we'll be talking about some of the wasteful spending that we see currently and some of the things that we think is wasteful that they're proposing. And we'll be doing that next week. So, other questions?
Where are you two on the capital bonding project? Do your caucuses support that?
On the capital, you're talking about the capital restoration or the whole?
Restoration.
Yeah, the capital restoration. I've been on record numerous times saying it's something that I think we need to do. I think Minnesotans believe it's something that, that this Capitol building is a treasure to the state of Minnesota. We have not actually caucused it yet, so I don't know that my caucus has a position, but I think there is broad support within my caucus to do continue with the capital restoration, and Senator Thompson can.
I'm right where Representative Daudt is. We have not taken a caucus position on it. I haven't even spoken to a lot of my colleagues, but I believe that a proper use of bonding is capital in our capital structures and taking care of our assets, and obviously the Capitol building is one of those. So.
Representative Daudt, just following up on that, the Speaker said the committee is going to roll out the bonding bill, their bonding bill next week. They'll need Republican votes for it. Have your members participated in the development of that bill? Is it going to be a bipartisan bill and we see it?
That's a good question. I'm eager to see, what they're proposing as well. I don't know that I've even heard a number yet. I've heard a number from the governor. Frankly, we're focused on working through the budget and balancing the budget in a way that doesn't put a burden on the hardworking taxpayers of Minnesota. At an appropriate time, we're happy to talk about a bonding bill. I think the capital is something we do agree on. I don't know what other projects will be included, and we'll be eager to see what they put forth. But at this point, we don't think it's appropriate to talk about borrowing money before we know where we're going to spend our money in the next biennium. So that's where our focus is.
But have your folks been talked to about this? Have they been part of the building the bonding bill?
That's I think that there are a few of my members that have some bills that have been introduced. I don't know if those bills will be included in the bonding bill that the DFL is proposing or not. I think I'll be like you, eager to see whether they are. I don't know. Frankly, I don't want to see a bonding bill. I don't want to see politics played with a bonding bill. I think these projects should be analyzed on their merits, and if we're getting into political stuff to try to buy votes, I don't necessarily think that's something that benefits Minnesotans. So I hope that's not the approach they're taking.
Do you remember any bonding bills where there wasn't politics played?
I've only been here 2 years, so I get to plead ignorant on that. No, I know that that's a reality of what goes on around here, but frankly, we'll see what happens. I really mean it when I say I hope we can change the tone around here, and I hope we can work together. And I'm very honest when I say we're focused on the budget, and we believe that we need to know where the Democrats' priorities are in spending for the next 2 years before we talk about borrowing additional money. The Vikings issue is something that is concerning. Here we're putting the state and the taxpayers on the hook for $500+ million in bonding on a revenue source that frankly is not panning out to even covering just a fraction of what it was supposed to in debt service. So we want to make sure that we've dealt with some of that stuff before we're talking about another $500, $750, or $1 billion worth of bonding.
Speaking of that, I'll ask you the same question that I did the DFL about the backup in the lottery. The lottery seems to be under the impression that they can get into the electronic gaming business in some fashion. Is that preferable to letting this fall to the general fund as the ultimate backup?
I won't speak. I actually just learned this morning here that the lottery had made those statements. I wasn't aware of that. I have not looked at the language specifically myself. I think I probably would agree with the speaker and say I don't think they would have the authority right now to do that. I think, frankly, that we need to figure something out because letting this fall in the general fund means that some other areas of the budget that, frankly, probably should have a higher priority are going to suffer because the funding source that was originally put forth has not panned out. So, and I think there's probably still some questions to answer on where the numbers came from and how we ended up in this situation, because I know my members are very concerned about that.
Would you support suspending bond sales until you have answers that satisfy you on this?
I think that's something we probably should talk about. I don't know if I'm ready to say that we should suspend them right now, but potentially. I think this is concerning enough. I think we should deal with it this session and figure out where the money's going to come from. I think the bond sale's happening in August or September, so we still have time to deal with it this session and figure out where this money's going to come from.
Well, how do you deal with that? Do you reopen the Vikings bill?
Well, potentially you've got to, right now the stadium's going to get built and the bonds are going to get let. So if we don't do something, the general fund is going to pay the debt service on these bonds. So, I know I've heard the Democrats say that they think we can wait until next session to deal with this. Frankly, that's after we've incurred all this debt. So I think the taxpayers deserve an answer this session yet, so I think we should talk about it.
I'm not clear as to what you mean, though. Do you mean, what do you want to do? Do you want to reopen the bill?
I don't think it's reopen. I mean, obviously we need to find a way to pay for this without it hitting the general fund, I think. And I'm not sure. I obviously voted against the bill because I didn't like the funding source. I didn't think the numbers were going to, I didn't think the revenue was going to come in. And I didn't think it was a stable revenue source. And I think that was the concern of a lot of my members. So, hopefully, those who wanted the stadium and thought that this was important can come forth with some additional ideas as well.
Aren't there backup revenues in the bill that protect the general fund from being tapped?
Right, but I think some of those revenues actually don't kick in until after the stadium's built. So we're going to be paying debt service for 3 or 4 years before some of those some of those backup sources are going to kick in. So I think the lottery game can, but what are we talking about with the lottery game? And I think that simply is going to reduce money to the other lottery games. I don't know that all of a sudden people start buying more lottery tickets because there's a new game with a purple helmet on it. So I don't know that the backup sources are going to really stop the money from coming from the general fund. And I don't know if you have.
What do Senate Republicans think about this?
Well, I don't know that we've come to any kind of a caucus position on how to deal with it, but I certainly agree with Representative Daudt that there needs to be a solution. I think that the important point here, and I, like Representative Daudt, voted against the bill for many reasons, one of which was the suspect funding source. I will admit, even I had no idea that it would be the colossal failure that it has been to this point. But, I guess from my perspective, this governor made this a priority. Roger Goodell came to town, the NFL got on this thing, and this governor decided we were going to have a stadium. And his finance commissioner came to committee after committee after committee in both bodies assuring us that this funding mechanism was going to work. So my perspective is we now have a big problem. And I think that those who created the problem and those who made miscalculations in determining the revenue that was going to come in ought to offer the solution. And Pat, to your point, what is the revenue source? Boy, I don't know. There aren't a lot of real good alternatives. We were assured was not going to come back on the general fund. not going to come back on the taxpayer. So then what are you going to do? Are you going to take it from charitable gambling? Is Ziggy Wilf the next charitable cause in the state? But I'm hoping that the folks who miscalculated this have the solution to the problem. And it is a problem. And we've, now built this up to the point that Minnesotans are expecting their Viking Stadium. And all of a sudden, the revenue is not there. And I hope this governor is willing to sit down and figure out how to get it. Because it certainly appears that barring a turnaround that I don't think anyone anticipates, the current funding mechanism is not going to get it done.
The lottery folks have said, if the state gives them some idea of what kind of money they need, they can structure a game to make that money, not the whole debt service. Do you think that the state lottery law and the stadium law authorizes them to do that?
I'm more than happy to answer a question given a little bit of time, but I'm in the same position as Representative Daudt. I literally first heard about this as an alternative when the Speaker was up here and mentioned it, so I would be out of school to address it because I haven't read the bill looking for that particular issue. But, I'd be happy to answer questions on that after I have a chance to consider it, but at this point, I'd be talking out of school. I just don't know.
Senator, obviously you read the bill. You know what was in the bill and what was discussed last year. Did you expect when this was debated that the lottery alternative could potentially turn into electronic machines wherever?
I didn't anticipate that. And yes, I did read the bill on more than one occasion, obviously, but I didn't read it in the context of does it allow that kind of thing, Tom. So, I didn't know what was going to happen if the current solution didn't work out. It never occurred to me to think through, if the lottery wants to do this, does the bill allow that? It never hit me.
Where do you all stand on civil unions? This was obviously brought up by, there was a news conference earlier this year or this week about civil unions. Where do you stand on it?
Well, there is no bill in the Senate, and to my knowledge, I'm unaware of a Senate author preparing anything. If it is going on, I don't know about it. I really don't have a lot to say about it. I think that, it's unfortunate, I really do, that we're standing here without a budget passed, and we seem to be talking about gay marriage and civil unions and grabbing guns and growing government, and we don't have a budget. So from a Senate perspective, we don't have a bill yet. I'll certainly let Representative Daudt address that issue.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think, obviously the question's in response to some members in the House, bipartisan group of members, introducing a bill this week on civil unions. Obviously, this is an issue that I think is in response to the Democrats and what seems to be a desire to pass a same-sex marriage bill this session. And I think that those members view this as something that would be kind of a compromise or alternative that basically gives kind of both sides of the issue a little bit or all of what they want. We learned that this is an issue that deeply divides Minnesotans in the last election cycle. I frankly don't have a position on it currently, and my caucus has not taken a position on it. We're frankly focused on the budget and balancing the budget, and we think that's our first priority, and it continues to be.
Do Republicans need to be more open to this politically? Civil unions, gay marriage, to be more open?
I don't know. I don't know if this is an issue that's maybe as partisan as people think it is. That obviously this was a group of, I think it was 4 or 5 Republicans and 1 Democrat on this bill.
Every Republican voted against the gay marriage ban. You know what I'm asking. Politically, a lot of people say that caused you to lose the election.
I'm not sure that I would even say that. I think that, obviously, like I said, this is an issue that deeply divides Minnesotans, and I think, the Democrats have said that this session that they want to, advance this issue. So obviously that's why it's before us, and here you have a bipartisan group of members that I think, frankly, and I'll just give you my perspective, I think they're doing something pretty good that we don't see that happens that often around here, which is, kind of 2 sides coming together and really looking at what both sides might want and finding something that would work for everybody. I don't know if it ultimately will, and I don't know if this bill's even going to get hearings, so it's a bit premature to even talk about.
Well, should a gay marriage ban be in the party platform, or should you have civil unions in your party platform?
Those are things that delegates decide at conventions.
You're pretty influential.
And I think those debates are going to happen in Minnesota, around Minnesota, in coffee shops, and frankly at party conventions as well. And I'll leave it for those people to make those decisions. And obviously they're sensitive issues, and like I said, I continue to say we learned in the last election that they are divisive issues. So. I think those discussions will continue to happen everywhere, and I think that's okay. But I at least think that these members are putting forth an issue that they think is a bit of a compromise, and whether it is or not, and whether it gains broad support, it seems right now like the DFL is saying they don't like it. We'll see. I don't know if it's even going to get hearings, so we'll see what happens. But I think the conversation. Obviously, the DFL wants it to continue, and I think it probably will.
Would you vote for the civil unions bill?
Again, I've said at this point I don't necessarily have a position on it. We'll see as it works through the process. I actually haven't even seen the language, so I don't know. But we'll see. It's a long process. If it gets hearings, if it gets a Senate author, and if it makes it to the House floor, I'll certainly take a look at it. Other questions?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Have a good weekend, everybody.